Okay, guys, I am here with Katie Proctor, and we are going to dive right in. I'm actually going to ask Katie to introduce herself. I know I gave you a little bit of background before we started, but I want Katie just to tell us a little bit about her background, her site, and what it is that she does.
Yeah, hi Jenny. It's so good to be featured on your podcast. Thanks for inviting me. So as you mentioned, I'm Katie Proctor. I'm a registered dietitian who has kind of a non-traditional background in brand management, corporate marketing, and really I've transitioned in the last couple of months to doing that for big corporations, to now kind of helping other dietitians like me really refine their business and brand strategy, because it's not really something that we learn in school. They're really good at, helping people with their health and nutrition, but not really kind of knowing how to get more clients and retain them and that kind of thing. So that's something that I'm really passionate, and I love the work that you specifically have been doing on helping people work with brands. I think that's so important, and it's one of the reasons how I got to know you in the first place.
Yes, it's funny because that is, I remember posting about it in a Facebook group and you coming back and asking me a question. And I remember getting nervous because I looked at your profile and could see that you would work with brands. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I hope she understands where I'm coming from, and I hope she agrees with what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it's so important for, people to kind of hear what's worked well for different people. Obviously, you kind of come at it from one angle, I can come at it from one angle, but at the end of the day, it's still pretty synergistic, which I think is cool to see.
Yes, no, absolutely. Now, we were chatting a little bit beforehand, and you had said that you've done the PR side for other brands. Can you tell us a little bit about what that consists of? Are you working with influencers? How does that work?
Yeah, so pretty much my entire career has been working with influencers in some capacity. When I started out at a PR agency, I had no idea what I was doing. I went to school for nutrition, and I did get a business minor, but I pretty much had to learn everything on the job. I didn't know how to write a press release. I didn't know how to pitch media. I didn't know how to build a program that would help a brand, reach its goals. And all of that is kind of what I was tasked with doing when I was at the PR agency. Really, the role is helping our clients, the different brands, spread their key messages, whatever those may be. So in that role, it was a little bit more communications focused. So maybe it was helping a brand improve the reputation of a specific ingredient that they were using, or helping people understand the health benefits of their product, or how it might be superior to another kind of sweetener or something else that was on the market, which was really interesting. And then over time, I sort of, from there, I transitioned and was doing more digital marketing and social media, and then really got into the pure business side of it and was working as a brand manager for a small organic food company. And that was really cool because I kind of got to see, when you're bouncing in and out of different clients at an agency, you only see a small snapshot of the picture. And that's a lot of times, I think, what influencers see too. They see a little tiny, picture of what's going on. And what was cool about working in the brand management role was that I really got to see what is the brand struggling with, what are their business goals, and how do these digital marketing communications tactics all help them achieve those. Because what I found, it's when I was just working in social media, I was that was the lens that I viewed everything. Everything was about engagement and awareness. But then I really started to see, well, okay, this Facebook post doesn't really matter if we can't get product on the shelf, right? So it's been cool to kind of see, just to really evolve my career in that way and get to see from a smaller picture to a bigger picture and really get really deep with one particular company.
Okay, that makes total sense. So one of the things that I get asked often, having the course working with brands, and one of the things I got excited about was getting to ask you, what do you look for in bloggers? What is it that you find that you look for the most?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think, over time, I've really gotten to see it evolve too, which At the beginning, I felt like it was all about getting product out. The more people that were talking about your product, the better. Didn't necessarily matter like if they were a big blogger or a small blogger. It was all about just getting your product out there. And over time, I think both the influencers and the brand partners realized that that wasn't super beneficial, yes, it's incenting trial and getting people to actually taste your product, but you're not getting the posts. I think in the early days, they weren't storytelling, they were just kind of saying like, oh, I got this and here it is.
Yes. It was like a review. They kind of told you what it was and what it tasted like and whatever else. Yes.
Exactly. And I know that's not near as fun, for the influencer, and it's not near as authentic feeling for the brand. So really, over time, what we started looking for was more longer term partnerships, less like one-offs, less like, will you feature this on your blog, and more, how can you become an advocate for our brand? How can you be associated with our brand so that when someone, I'm sure there's people that you can think of that when you go to their site, you think, oh, they are always talking about such and such brand or such and such ingredient, and I'm going to buy it because they're talking about it. And at the end of the day, like, as a brand, that's what you want. Like, the idea and the ROI has always been challenging, but you want people to take action on the recommendations that the influencer is making. So I would definitely say that even more so than audience size, while yes, like that is important to an extent, engagement of the community, and demonstration that they will, like, if someone says go buy this, like, they'll go buy it.
Right. No, absolutely. So now a lot of my audience are newer bloggers or bloggers that have been blogging for like a year or two, and they are used to going through normally networks. They're not used to going to the brand. So, and part of what I teach obviously is to reach out to the brands, but how do they stand out, would you say? What is the best thing to do? Is it to show that they use the product all the time and have that content already on their site? Or is it just to know what the brand is looking to have their audience engaged in?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And I think there's a couple of things that a newer blogger can do to kind of get the attention of the brand. One thing is to start engaging with them on social media, because I know one thing that you've talked about as well is that many times the decision makers for the brand programs are going to be agencies who are probably the ones managing the social media channels. So that name recognition, and showing that you are an authentic advocate for the brand already,
yes,
I think is really helpful and super important. So starting to do that, I think, is really good. I also think that, reaching out and just being willing to have a conversation with the brand and demonstrating that you know what they're working on. Like, if you can reference that you saw a new product that they launched or a campaign that they're working on, like, their campaign hashtag. It's these simple things which really help you stand out, because at the end of the day, like, the person that you're reaching out to, the agency, the brand manager, the marketing manager, whoever it is, like, they have a job to do, which is why they're implementing these specific campaigns. And if you can show that you're willing to partner within, like, the message that they're already trying to provide, I think that just really helps you stand out, instead of saying, hey, I want to create a recipe for you, or hey, I want to try some product and maybe review it on my site. It's really going in intentionally saying, I know what you're working on and I want to support it.
And the great thing about that is, as from the blogger influencer standpoint, that doesn't take very long to do. All you got to do is go check their Twitter or Facebook feed. It's very, very simple to do. And to engage with that brand, have a conversation with them before you are starting to try to send that initial pitch, I think can make a huge difference. Like you're saying, because you just get to know that person on a personal level rather than just being this brand or blog name. So
yeah, exactly. And I think, too, one thing that is forgotten is that the person that you're emailing or contacting is just like you, someone out there trying to do their job. I think so many times you, like, maybe put the brand on a pedestal, like, how do I get them to want to work with me? But really, it's all about just coming at it from a mutually beneficial point of view and being willing to have a conversation. I think you don't always have to go in with a big presentation. It's being willing to open the door. Hey, I would love to talk to you about your goals. Like, what are you working on this year? And then that gives the blogger some opportunity to really get creative with, a proposal that they might put out or the program that they might suggest. Whereas I found that sometimes, if someone would just reach out to me and say, can I create a recipe for you? If that wasn't a priority, it sort of like closed the door on that opportunity.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. So one of the big things that I teach is not to get so specific like that by saying, can I create a recipe? Because it does. It's the fastest way to not hear back from them. And you just made their job so much simpler because it's not something that they're looking for. Now, one of the things that I get a lot of questions about is your media kit, your proposal. When would you recommend sending? I know proposal, obviously, it's obvious you would send it second after the initial pitch. But your media kit, when do you think the best time to send that is?
I think sending that with your second email is totally fine. I think that I personally, you can send it with the first email if you want, but I also think that just getting that initial relationship building, contact, and communication out there without being like a sales presentation can be really nice.
So I just took a huge risk by asking you that question because I teach to send it in the second email. So I was like, well, we're gonna see what she says. So go for it with this one.
I think that's right. Because it can be one of the things that it's hard, because I know there were times when I would get an email and it was like so long, and then there would be all this documentation attached, and I didn't know who the person was, and it was just like, okay, I'll come back to this later, and then maybe I never came back to it, because that person is busy, they're working on things, it's not necessarily always meaning that they don't want to work with you, but it can be overwhelming to give them so much information before they say, okay, yes, I want to continue the conversation.
Right. It's just like when, as an influencer, we get emails all the time from brands, and if they come off all with a press release and it's straight regurgitation, it offsets us. We're kind of like, no, I'm not even going to bother replying back or finding out if they work with me as, for compensation. And I try to make sure that whenever I'm writing a pitch, it's very like breezy. It's easy. It's just trying to establish that relationship, I think, is huge.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I hear that from influencers all the time. They're like, oh, they got my name wrong in, the pitch, or you could tell it was just a blanket email. Brands feel the same way. If you can tell that somebody just copy pasted the exact same pitch to 20 different brands, copy and replace the brand name, it just doesn't really feel good either, So I think that customization is huge.
And being able to show like how your influence actually has something to do with that brand. Because I think a lot of times people will say, oh, well, I use this product all the time. And I'm like, okay, but is it something your audience is going to connect with, because that's where your influence is. Like, you have to know your audience in order to work with the brand too. And know what the brand's audience is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I highly suggest, if any influencers haven't taken the time to do like some demographic surveys of their audience, that now would be a great time to do that, because that's information that you can provide to the brand to show that to make sure that you're reaching the right people, because at the end of the day, that can help you stand apart even more too. Like, if you know that some brands, for example, might be focusing on a specific region of the country, if they're doing a product launch in the Northeast, if you know that 75% of your readers are in the Northeast, they may be more likely to work with you, even if you have a smaller audience, because the targeting is on, and it's more than just like age, and gender, it's behaviors too. I mean, another way that this is kind of a secret that maybe not a lot of people don't know, but, where do your people shop? Because some brands have better relationships with certain retailers than others. They may be doing an exclusive product launch with a specific retailer. So if you can say that X% of my readership shops, gets their groceries, I'm speaking to food because that's what I worked in, but gets their groceries at this location or buys online, you can really help create a really impactful partnership with this data. So getting to know your audience is so, so important, and that can help you really stand out from the brand perspective too.
No, that makes complete sense. And I mean, that is something that I try to not only teach for working with brands, but also when you're talking about people for their email list. Like, you have to know what it is that your audience is looking for. So, no. Yes. Absolutely. So another one of the questions that we often get, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, is when we go through a campaign, so we're working with the brand and we're going through the campaign and we do our social media shares. One of the things that I teach is that you make sure that you give them all of your information as far as your reach on your tweets, your retweets, how many, your likes, your shares. So the question that I get asked a lot of time is, what's enough? When have I actually performed to what they're expecting?
Well, I think part of that is setting expectations up front. And if you're working with an agency or a network, usually they do a good job of that too. And demonstrate that, like, if you're going off reach, it's usually potential reach. It's not necessarily guaranteed results unless you're working with a network that's saying, like, these impressions or whatever are guaranteed. Right. I would say that, one, setting clear expectations up front so that there's no surprises. And really just think about, like, making the life easier for the brand manager or the marketing manager, whoever you're working with. And that's what they're looking for in terms of data, because they're going to have to go back and maybe share that with their board, or share that with their marketing director to say this program worked or it didn't, and potentially get funding for another one. So I think it's less about, like, continuing to push, your content out there until you reach a certain number, but it's doing a nice job of positioning it back to the brand team and showing them that the work that you have done is helping them achieve their goals. If it was awareness, how many people you reached. If it was conversions, is it how many people actually used the coupon code or clicked on a link or something? So really giving them something to react to without them having to ask for it, I think can really set you apart too.
So I want to give an example because just to make sure that my readers kind of understand what you're talking about. So when Katie's talking about, like, impressions and things of that nature, let's give an example of, like, Rice Krispies. So for Rice Krispies, you can use their Rice Krispies, create a post, and as long as you have Rice Krispies in the background on Instagram, they're not going to care about the number of page views necessarily because they recognize Rice Krispies and know how to make Rice Krispies treats. As compared to something where you need to come for the full recipe for a flour company, let's say, and they're using it's gluten-free flour, and you're creating a specific dessert or something of that nature where they would expect to have some page views. And then if there's a coupon included, like you said, some links over to actually click over. Because I think that a lot of times we get so hung up on numbers because we're concerned as bloggers about our page views. Then we're concerned about, well, did I deliver what they expected? Is it good enough? And I think if we just realize, like, a lot of brands, you have to have that conversation. I know when I worked with Rice Krispies, that was the conversation. It doesn't necessarily need to be page views on the page. It's out on social media. They know Rice Krispies treats. It's not difficult to find out how to make them. They probably know how to already.
Yeah. I think a great question that you can ask the brand up front is, like, what is a win for you? What could I show you? Yeah, that would make you feel like, yes, this program was successful. That way you can build your content in that capacity and know that you're helping them reach your goals, because you might actually be surprised by what they say, and it's going to vary by brand.
I love that. I never thought to ask that question, and that makes so much sense. So something like that would come in, like, after you put together a proposal, you're agreeing on your terms, and then you're trying to figure out before you put out the campaign what they're looking for. Love it. Oh, that's such a great tip. Thank you so much for that one. So now tell me a little bit more about what you do with Elevate with Katie. Sorry, elevatewithkatie.com.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I've kind of evolved into doing ever since I left my full-time brand management job in, when was it? September. So half the time I'm a freelance brand manager for actually two very well-known healthy living bloggers, Monique of Ambitious Kitchen and Leah Fit Foodie Finds. Together, they created a new project called the Healthy Glow Collective, which is just a healthy living resource and community for women. So that takes up the bulk of my time, really, helping them kind of develop this new brand and business model, which has been a lot of fun to really take what I learned in the business world and apply it with, the blogging world. So that's been fun. And then with Elevate with Katie, what I really do there is I work with other dietitians like me who are trying to really build their influence, income, and independence in their businesses. So, a lot of times we have this deep desire, especially as dietitians, it's a helping profession, and we want to change the world and really change people's lives for the better. And the testimonials that we get, that's what drives us and moves us forward. But also as dietitians, we tend to say yes to a lot of things. We tend to say yes, I'll take that freelance job. Yes, I'll write those blog posts. Yes, I will, take more one-on-one clients. And I think a lot of influencers can relate to that as well, having their hands in so many different jars. You're getting revenue or activities from so many different places. So really helping people prioritize so that they're doing things that feel good to them. They're not feeling like that they have to sacrifice their authenticity to make money or their credibility. And then also so that they are they're enjoying their life too. Because as once you dip into the world of entrepreneurship, it is very, very easy for it to become your everything, and yeah, it's super important to have that, at least that integration. I don't really care for the word balance just because it's you're never going to be completely in balance. You're always going to be leaning heavy one way or the other at any given point in time, but to make it integrated in a way that, that you're happy about.
Yes. And I think many of us too, as entrepreneurs, we have the tendency to start multiple projects all at once. We'll dive into something new. And I know you're talking primarily you work with dietitians, but I can know from myself as a lifestyle blogger, I'm jumping in and out of stuff all the time. I feel I just started something new yesterday that I'm kind of what am I thinking?
We're idea people, it's we're creative, and when we have an idea, the cool thing is that you can implement it right away, but that's also the challenging thing too, is knowing when to table something and write it down as a future idea and come back to it, or say X needs to get done first, then I can work on, these other things. And actually, I hope you don't mind me just going ahead and sharing this, but that is kind of the opt-in that I'll be sharing for you guys, is helping people really understand how to focus their time on income-producing activities so that, and this was taken from my days at the PR agency, you had to write down in 15-minute increments, every single thing that you were doing and either bill it back to the agency or bill it back to the client. And obviously the goal was, if you want to make money for the business, you want to have more billable time towards your clients. And I think that's really how we can be thinking about our businesses as influencers and, health professionals, whatever it is thinking about, is the bulk of my time spent on income producing activities, things that will move my business forward versus things that feel like I'm being productive, but I'm not, and I get caught in that trap all the time. So it's good for me too. So that's I've created just kind of a worksheet that can help people have a quick win and figure out where your time is going and how to improve it.
Yes, and you guys can actually download that. You go to jennymelrose.com/podcast7, and you'll be able to download that so that you have the worksheet to actually fill in and go through. I am so excited that you brought up that, because one of the areas, so I also have a membership site where I work with influencers that have gone through my Working with Brands e-course, and we often talk about time management and how we've been recently talking about taking your projects, breaking them into tasks, but looking at those projects, like you're saying, income producing, I love that term that you use. And I'm so excited because you're going to be coming in there to talk to them. They're going to be so excited about that. That is fabulous. So now, one of the things that I always ask any of my guests are their projections for 2017. So what do you see to be like the new up and coming, whether it's social media or working with bloggers, anything? What would you say?
Yeah, so interesting that you asked that, because I've been thinking about it a lot as I kind of think of where I want to go in 2017, and I'm actually anticipating a shift from, I think 2016 was all about passive income and like set it and forget it type programs. I think that 2017 is going to be going back to high touch and high value and high attention kind of programs. So where you're getting more one-on-one attention and customization, you're not just going through, some worksheets or something with no support. I think it's really going to shift back to, I guess like walking people through a process. And I think that applies to bloggers and influencers as well. And thinking about like, the set it and forget it of yesterday was, can I create a recipe for you? Great, here it is, like done, to can I create a strategic partnership with you?
Yes, I love that. Because that's honestly where I feel like I've started focusing as well with helping bloggers and influencers, is that we have e-consulting office hours as part of our master's program where the membership site is. So they actually get on Skype with me. We do 15-minute sessions, and it's like a swift kick in the pants to just keep moving forward.
That's really great and so valuable. I think people underestimate that FaceTime, especially, in a work for yourself type environment, it can get really lonely. So getting that conversation and bouncing ideas off someone who's been there, that's a great offer.
Yes, no, and I love it because it makes me look back at my business, because I have the Jenny Melrose, but I also have the Melrose family, and I'm going back and reworking so many things on the Melrose family that I've learned over the years, and the emphasis, like you're talking, like that one-on-one attention, and like being able to bring that to the brands, but also to my audience. How can I create that experience for my audience where they're getting to know me and really feeling comfortable with me? Because ultimately, that is what we're looking for. Like your people have to trust you in order to purchase from you or believe in what products you are talking about.
Yes, connection is everything. And I feel like I'm seeing that, especially in influencers who have been around for a long time. They spent so many years, started out as a passion project, then it became a business where they were really running it, as an income producing activity, but it became something that they lost joy in, so this year is all about blogging for why they started blogging in the first place, and I definitely think that you can be yourself and share yourself and still earn an income, I think even more so because you are relatable and approachable, and again, it gets that trust that people want to buy from you.
I love that. It's so funny because episode 6 was with Nicole Culver, and Nicole talked about pivoting towards what it is that you love, what it is that you were meant to do to be able to produce income. So it's all along the same terms. I love it. Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with my audience and speak with me. I am so excited about that download that my audience can grab. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much. Keep up doing the great work.
Fabulous.